So maybe we should do Dark Phoenix first, so we can try to recover from the Dungeons and Dragons fiasco.
That's probably
Which,
good.
Rich, is totally fun, and your effort much appreciated. I am with Vicky on this one. Not sure it's our best podcasting.
And welcome to a more traditional episode of Even More Mashed Up, the pop culture
Thank
podcast
God.
brought to you from, well, not Misericordia University, but Alan's dorm room apartment.
Woohoo!
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Alan. If you have been listening to the podcast, and I'm guessing most of you haven't, as we've veered into the Dungeons and Dragons episodes.
As your party enters the dungeon, you see torches flicking off. Oh, not.
Yeah,
okay.
let's stop.
Okay.
It seems to have killed the show,
It has not
but
killed
it
the show.
hasn't. The show will rise from the ashes of Dungeons and Dragons, much like a dirty phoenix might.
Dirty Phoenix.
Well, dark phoenix.
Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, but just like a phoenix might.
Yeah.
So we're talking about. By the way, I'm Alan, and we're talking about.
How do you introduce yourself?
Did I?
Yeah.
Dang it! I've been up to 1 o'clock the last 2 nights. My life has been a difficult grind of late. So please forgive me if I'm a little spotty today.
As opposed to your normal spottiness.
Well, it's got to be better than Dungeons and Dragons. Let's be
No.
honest.
That's quality.
Yeah.
Every second you just take the batch to D&D.
You just a little bit smaller piece of Rich's heart breaks off.
Well, okay. Number one, I'm not sure Rich has a heart.
Whatever little darkened, burnt pieces of the left are slowly breaking off.
So anyway, Dark
seems okay with
Phoenix
that.
today. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Today we're talking X-Men Dark Phoenix.
you want to clear out the dark, charred parts of your heart. I suppose.
The finale of X-Men.
Oh, I thought you were going to call it
20th
the
Century
phenomenon.
Fox.
The phenomenon.
No,
No.
finale. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
it's
it's
more
a
of a
phenomenon.
finale. Boy, people hate this movie.
Yeah, critics do. I mean, the fans, last I saw on Rotten Tomatoes, were at like 60% or something.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
It's clearly not done well. At the box offices, they're talking like it's going to lose $100 million.
well, in large part because let me check out Rotten Tomatoes. I have my computer with me today because I have no notes.
Yeah, if you and I can't talk about Dark Phoenix for,
Yeah.
50 minutes, then we probably shouldn't be doing the show.
Well, I think the Dungeons and Dragons podcast has demonstrated that we shouldn't be doing this
You're
show.
welcome for the setup there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's 23% critics, 64% audience.
Yeah, so...
Wait, can I be honest? And I've got some criticisms of the film.
Oh, I've got criticisms.
It's not that bad.
It's not, it's not, and people saying that it's the worst of the X-Men franchise. I'm like, no, it is not.
But people said it's worse than The Last Stand.
No, it's not worse.
Which
It's close, but it's not
Oh,
worse.
I don't think so.
It's got some of the same issues, I would say.
I don't disagree with that. When I walked away from The Last Stand, though, I remember feeling almost abjectly disappointed.
See, I liked.
Killed the series. It's dead.
It's like the Dungeons.
podcast.
It's the Dungeons and Dragons of the X-Men
That's right.
franchise.
It is the D&D of the X-Men franchise.
So I remember.
This film is not that bad.
I remember liking X-Men Last
As is D&D.
Stand only in the sense that I thought it worked as the third film in the trilogy.
Yeah.
I didn't think it worked very well as a film on its own.
Yeah, to me...
And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm not sure it really works as a third film in the trilogy either.
But Dark Phoenix, to me, and you guys know that I love just a classic popcorn summer movie.
Mm-hmm.
Transformers.
It kind of works that way for me. Although I've got some issues with it.
I wouldn't say it doesn't quite work that way for me. I think it, but it's not. Yeah, I agree. It is by no means the worst of the X-Men films.
It's not a bad film, right?
No, it's fine.
I think it's good.
I don't know if I'd go
if the
that
scale
far.
is good, very good, excellent.
Yeah,
I think it falls in the good category.
I'd
There's-
maybe put it at the lower end of good.
Yeah.
If that, it's. I mean,
So like
it's-
Thor: Dark World.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it would definitely be.
It's
kind
better
of,
than. I think it's better than that.
Nah, I don't
Dark
think I'd go
World's
that far.
not a good film. I haven't watched Dark World in a long time.
I watched it recently. It's not as bad as.
And maybe you need to come back to Dark Phoenix in 8 years.
I don't hate Dark Phoenix. I think I would say, well, two things. It's not as bad as certainly the critics have savaged it.
And the things
But
they
I
said about
think
the actors and the writing and it's too much.
But I think it really, again, kind of like Last Stand, it really suffers in comparison to the original Dark Phoenix storyline.
Well, that's the ultimate problem with every effort to make the Dark Phoenix.
Except for the animated series, which
Right.
did a really decent job.
Can
with
I just say that it is amazingly depressing to me that nobody in Hollywood went in and said, you know what, we ought to do a Dark Phoenix. And it's a trilogy. And it doesn't have to be canonical.
Right.
But it is maybe Claremont's best work. And
it's up there. I mean, yeah, Dark Phoenix, the 2-part Days of Future Past.
Right, which they did okay with in the movies
yeah,
as well.
Which they did, yeah, I mean, again, it's definitely among, like, the best of what Claremont did on the X-Men.
And clearly, by the way, the X-Men franchise has been doing what our Dungeons & Dragons episodes have been. Like, First Class was a really nice movie. I really liked First Class.
Are you just ignoring the first 3 films?
Well, I'm thinking about the reboot.
Okay.
Like that one I really enjoyed. The next one was good, but not as good.
Oh, see, I like Days of Future Past.
I liked it, but it wasn't as good as First Class.
Now, they're about on par for me.
And then Age of Apocalypse was not quite as good.
You mean X-Men Apocalypse?
Whatever they called it. And then this one was not. It was like diminishing returns each step.
I mean, this one feels kind of similar to me as Apocalypse did. Like, I have kind of the same. It feels about on par with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Apocalypse gave us Psylocke, which would boost it in anybody's.
It did, but this one gave us Selene, and I think the other guy's name is Red Lotus.
Yeah. So, to get back to my point, that nobody's gone to.
I think the other guy's name is Red Lotus. That's the best character.
They never call him in the movie by his name.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I just remember that reading somewhere that he was part of Magneto's team.
By the way, did I see Puck in there?
I didn't see Puck.
I thought I caught Puck somewhere at Magneto's little upside down ship village.
I had nothing jumped out at me, but
okay. Anyway,
I did see Dazzler. Classic 70s Dazzler.
It was hard to miss Dazzler. We can get back to that, but I love seeing her. But nobody's gone into the Hollywood pitch room and said, Dark Phoenix sets up as the perfect trilogy. Jean acquires the power.
Yeah.
Power corrupts Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Jean struggles for redemption.
Now, see, I might break it up a little bit differently. I would do Jean acquires power. Would be the first film. The second film would basically I follow the comics, and the second film would be kind of their first encounter with the Shi'ar when she has to fix the M'Kraan crystal, and kind of you have like Phoenix in all of her glory, and then I would have the fall in the third film.
See, I would make the second film the corruption. Like, you can have the M'Kraan crystal, but then like it ends with her destroying a planet.
Yeah, but then there's not a lot to do in that last film. I mean, you basically just have the one issue.
Well, that's why the Shi'ar, that's where they come in.
Oh, you got to bring in the Shi'ar earlier than that.
I don't know. But
you
anyway,
bring in the Shi'ar
the point being, we can quibble about how to break it up.
Yeah.
But the story's there for a real.
Well, but I read somewhere that they originally were going to do it as a 2-parter, and then they ultimately just shoehorned it into one.
Yeah, but that also, I read that Variety article.
Maybe that's what I read.
It felt like now everybody's arguing about whose fault it is.
Yes.
Like everybody's trying to point fingers now that it's
it to be
tanked.
good somehow.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I feel like they might have aired when they thought, hey, you know that guy who helped co-write X-Men Last Stand?
Yeah.
Let's have him write and direct another Dark Phoenix movie.
Yeah,
like, I don't think Kinberg was a great choice.
The story is there.
Yeah.
Like, why they need to... And, like, is it the Dabari that are in this film?
Yes.
It doesn't work for me.
No, I mean, I think I give the film credit, but I also think it's part of why I think people are disappointed in it, in that it tried to take things from the original comics, like it brought the Dabari in.
Right.
You know, Jessica Chastain's character is sort of mastermind / Emma Frost-ish.
Yeah.
When they all have the big confrontation at the house, or the New York mansion or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, oh, that's our kind of ersatz version of the Hellfire Club there. So I give it credit for it trying to do stuff, but it also just automatically recalls how much it's not actually doing the original story.
The worst of all worlds. Like, all these references you're talking about are...
70s Dazzler, who of course showed up during the original
Right, but like the Hellfire Club, it's there, and it clearly feels like the Hellfire Club.
But it's not.
And it doesn't do anything for the film, and it leaves you just...
Well, and that's the other problem, and I think
it's like, you love Easter eggs, but I hate them.
Well, but this also goes... Yeah. I think it goes back towards, you know, Kinberg's writing, and one of the ways that this is very similar to X-Men Last Stand is there's just a lot of stuff thrown in that has no real depth. Like beyond Jean and Xavier and Beast and maybe Magneto, like the rest of the X-Men are just kind of there. They have no storyline.
Right.
Like I remember during the big battle, I'm like, are you seriously telling me that Storm is having trouble with the guy that can manipulate his dreadlocks?
Yeah.
Like, Storm cannot take that guy out.
He's a powerful opponent.
Like,
okay?
that was... And then the whole, like, Nightcrawler just stabbing people with his tail and killing people. I'm like, where did that come from?
Are we talking about things that we don't like about the film? Nightcrawler, that moment with Nightcrawler was one of my least favorites.
Yeah, because that's not Nightcrawler.
Well, okay, number one, in the comic books, it's not Nightcrawler.
It's not Nightcrawler at all.
Nightcrawler, and even in the movie, it's not Nightcrawler.
No, it's not. I mean,
but in the night, like Nightcrawler is such an interesting comic book character,
Mm-hmm.
like a very sort of faith-driven Christian
yes.
person.
Which they did some with
Born-
in the
yeah.
second X-Men movie when you had Alan Cummings play him, who was
right,
perfect.
Right, born looking like a devil, you know, struggling with
Devout Catholic.
yeah, like how do you like mesh the way you're treated by human beings and your sort of your Catholicism? Really interesting character. What we get here is this young naive kid. I can even live with that.
I can live with that. I liked him in Apocalypse.
Who becomes this ruthless, cold-blooded killer.
In like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Right. And just in a way that didn't feel organic.
No. And that's the problem.
Didn't feel developed.
There's not a lot in the film that feels organic if you're not Jean
And
or Xavier or Magneto.
And then he goes back to the school like nothing happened.
Yeah.
You know, in the like the post big train battle.
Yeah. I remember seeing in
Nightcrawler
the
was treated very poorly.
Yeah, well I remember seeing in one of the trailers there was a shot of like Nightcrawler's face where he was looking really demonic.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, is he somehow being corrupted by the Phoenix Force? Like,
Yeah.
is he, you know, on Jean's side and
No.
being corrupted? And I'm like, no, he just all of a sudden goes nuts and starts killing people. I'm like, that's...
As you do.
Yeah.
Well, now time out though. Like the killing people thing was weird too. Like because one of Vicky's biggest complaints about the movie was the fight at the end.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with her. Number one, there's like 2 helicopters bringing people, but every time they wipe like 12 people off the top of the trains,
there's
there's
still
12 more.
I know, I never...
And
I
then
was
there's
like,
12
how
more,
are
and you're
they
like-
not done?
Like, where are these people coming from?
Yeah, I
Video
mean...
game logic. They're just spawning them in.
yeah,
you
but
know?
I'm pretty
no,
sure...
It's
that's
the-
exactly
But
what it
I'm
is.
pretty sure
Like,
the
it's a
whole
video
point
game.
of the Dabari being there is that they were pretty much wiped out. So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be that many.
Right. And somehow some of them have been around for a long time on Earth.
Yeah, that... I mean,
Right,
yeah,
and
just
if
stuff
they've
that...
infiltrated the FBI, and Vuk has just shown up.
And yeah, it's... Again...
It's like, what?
It goes towards the fact that you know, Kinberg as a writer, it's all very superficial. Like there's no depth.
Right. Yeah.
Like I give him credit that you know, it seemed like with this he was trying to be somewhat faithful to the original storyline. Given that, and I think
Yeah,
part of it
but-
too is I think part of the problem with the film too has been kind of the struggle with the X-Men films, particularly as they've moved forward, is that they've been grounded from the very first one in a very sort of realistic aesthetic. Like, it's an effort to kind of do X-Men as if they were in the real world.
Right.
And that meant the more you try to do they have to shoehorn Dark Phoenix into a much sort of smaller scope.
Right.
And they run into problems with that every time. And I think part of it is this version of Dark Phoenix suffers,
Yeah.
particularly coming after something like Infinity War, where you look at Infinity War and you think, yeah, they could do Dark Phoenix now. We don't have to have this very sort of constrained,
Right.
realistic approach to the X-Men anymore because, you know, budgets and
Right.
you know, special effects have evolved to the point where you could actually do a straight Dark Phoenix saga.
Right.
But instead, because of the way the X-Men franchise at Fox has been constructed, it's this much sort of smaller scope to the story that
Which is
diminishes
just-
it.
Yeah, and the Dabari suffer as a result. So
Everything suffers as a
right.
result.
But so the
The
Dabari.
audience suffers. the
Explain to me. Like you say, Nightcrawler goes on this murderous rampage.
Yes.
And he does. He sticks his tail through people's necks.
Yeah.
And they're dead, right?
Pretty much, I'm pretty sure
Okay.
you die from that.
But when they are riddled with bullets, the bullets apparently never hit the same place in the neck.
I guess-
Because like it's only superpowers that kill Dabari.
No. Clearly, Nightcrawler's tail hits with much greater force
Than a bullet. Yeah.
It's just physics.
But the bullets
Yeah.
are going through them because they're tearing them apart. But they just
Yeah, but they're
Right,
just
but they're not.
bullets.
But they're not
just-
doing damage. Nightcrawler's tail goes right through.
Bullets
I'm just saying,
aren't designed to kill. They're
all-
just designed to annoy.
got it. So all of the super.
Yeah.
My point being, like, the only way you can kill a Dabari is to have a superpower.
Yes.
Or a tail.
Yeah.
If you just born with a tail, you're set.
Well, it's kind of like a superpower in this film.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't have tails, so having a tail is would fall under the category of a mutation.
Right. Anyway, that bothered me.
Yeah,
The whole Dabari storyline doesn't make sense.
Well,
to me.
they apparently, I guess the end of the film, I think in the Variety article they talked about this, they changed the end of the film because they feared it was going to be too similar to some movie in the MCU. I've heard Captain Marvel, Infinity War, and Civil War.
Yeah.
Well, so
Civil
you wonder
War
how
doesn't
much
make sense to me because they would have known about Civil War when they made the film.
That's what some people point out. Like Civil War was 3
maybe
years
that
ago.
was the plan. Like that works. We'll do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, can I ask you some questions about the Dabari?
Sure.
So, their home planet was destroyed.
Yeah. Well, they're the ones that Phoenix destroys in the comic.
Right.
They're the asparagus-looking people.
Right. So, had they looked more like asparagus, it would have made the mill.
Which, by the way, do you remember when the Dabari, what comic book the Dabari first show up in?
Yeah. Avengers 32.
No.
Spider-Man
Artwork
16.
by Steve Entwistle. I don't know. Where do they first show up?
They
It's
first
gotta
show
be
up
Avengers,
in
right?
They show up in Avengers number 4.
That early?
It's the alien. I think Claremont or Byrne used them in Dark Phoenix, but I think it's actually Vuk that shows up in Avengers number 4. He's the alien.
Interesting.
That
What is the
that's the
alien's
issue that
name?
Cap comes back.
I knew. Vuk.
Is his name? Who was in the X-Men
okay.
Gold, the X-Men Gold annual that brought back Excalibur last year? He was apparently
Yeah.
the main villain in that.
So-
Starhammer, I think, is his code name.
So can I? Yeah.
Really terrible.
Yeah. So the Dabari have been following the Phoenix Force through space.
Yes.
For reasons that don't make a lot of sense to me.
Even though we did not see their ship the entire time they were in
Right.
space. But
Yeah.
yes, they were apparently right there.
There's a lot of room in space to hide.
And it's like the Romulans. They got cloaking technology.
Yeah, they didn't really establish that. Also, we
Yeah.
see the ship.
Right. So they've been tracking the Phoenix Force for reasons I don't understand.
Yes. Because they apparently want it for themselves so
Right.
that they can remake a planet into a new homeworld for them.
And so the Phoenix Force then inhabits Jean.
Well, to be fair, it's never called the Phoenix Force. It's just
Well,
called
whatever it is, like
this the force that gave life to the universe.
the Big Bang Force, whatever you want to
In the
call it.
movie
right?
Dark Phoenix.
Let's just call it like the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, well, that's what it would be in the comics.
So they're tracking it.
Yes.
It inhabits Jean,
Yes.
and then Vuk gets Jean to give it to her.
Yes.
Why didn't Vuk just go take it way back when?
She says, okay, two answers.
But she can handle it.
Two answers.
She's capable
Whoa,
of
whoa,
handling
whoa, I have two answers.
Does one of them run the D&D episode no matter what?
No, one of them is A.
We discussed it and we put it on pause. That's why it ran.
We never discussed that. We never decided that. We discussed it. We didn't decide it. Answer A.
Oh, a decision was made, my friend.
Answer yes by Rich.
Wait, you
Dungeon
have
Master
two, and you're going to
Balvin.
start with A?
A.
I have a list of two.
Yes.
A.
And then 2,
Bad writing.
Yes.
that can't be an answer.
That was kind of my point.
I know. The longer answer is
Yeah.
you could argue that Vuk wouldn't, because she says that the Phoenix Force destroys everything it inhabits prior to Jean.
Yeah.
So prior to it inhabiting Jean, she may not have known that it could have inhabited another person safely. Once she sees it safely in Jean, then she's like, oh, maybe I can take it. None of that is actually in the movie, and I
Yeah.
refer you to answer A, bad writing.
Right, because the whole point is there's something special about Jean
Yes.
that allows
allegedly.
her to do it, and
What
then
is
all of a
special
sudden...
about
Or she assumes there's something special about Jean until she realizes, no, there isn't. It just can inhabit people if it wants to.
And that's not the end
So
of the problem.
there's nothing special about Jean.
I don't know. It's not clear in the film.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Even in the
Again,
comics?
A, bad writing.
So, back to the Dabari, because it gets worse, I think. If they can...
Oh, Yayu's here too.
Yeah.
Huh.
If they can
It gets real bad.
manage the Phoenix Force,
Yes.
their goal is to recreate their home life, like
Yes.
the Dabari, right?
Yes.
Why do they have to kill everybody on Earth to do that?
Because
If
they're
they have
evil.
if they have the Phoenix Force, they could do it anywhere.
They could, but they're evil.
Much like Thanos.
Okay, so you have
could-
a list of two things: A, bad writing, or B, bad writing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, right, and that's the problem with Dabari and with Vuk. There's absolutely no development.
And again, that's the reason
Of
why
them.
Dark Phoenix, as they have tried twice now,
Yeah.
cannot be done in one film.
Right.
Because
Yes.
there's just too much to do.
If you want to make the Dabari Thanos, which is derivative but maybe worth doing,
Yeah.
you need to see them as real human beings
Yeah.
/ aliens,
Or you need to see
living on
them
their home planet,
prior to showing up as like, okay, they're evil.
and you need to see their home planet destroyed
Yeah.
by the Phoenix Force. Right? You need to build a backstory
Yes.
that people really feel and feels authentic. Instead,
Yes.
these are some of the most cardboardy villains
Yes.
that I've seen in a
Except when
superhero
they face
movie
bullets.
in a long time. Oh, except for Suicide Squad, which was full of cardboardy villains.
Yeah. Well, they're very Suicide
And yet
Squad
somehow still won an award.
for makeup.
Hey, you know what? You win an Oscar, you win
Oh
an
yeah,
Oscar.
you're
Yeah.
an Oscar-winning film
When we win a podcasting award,
for
For
our
the
Dungeons and
D&D
Dragons
episodes.
episodes.
they give awards for worst podcast of the year.
It's still an award.
Yeah, I
boy.
No.
win an award. You know,
Worst
award-winning.
podcast idea.
No, and podcast.
Yeah, no.
Worst upload schedule ever.
Yeah.
So,
Just cram the D&D down their throats.
Yeah.
You will like this.
okay. So
So,
we're talking about Dark Phoenix.
so the point being, my first complaint with the film is its treatment of the villains, really.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, they're you know, they're cardboard. They're basically just there to be the villains.
And Jessica Chastain is a pretty good actor,
Yeah, she's a great actor.
by all accounts, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's very talented. I just felt like she had so little to work
Yeah,
with
there wasn't
in
a
this
lot to do.
script.
I mean, again, yeah, I mean, the movie in general is, and I think this is one of the problems with it, is that it's pretty tissue thin.
Right. So, like, when Vuk inhabits that body for the first time,
Yes.
she hears her dog barking.
Mm-hmm.
She goes out to check. The dog is clearly really upset.
Yeah.
There's a house full of people behind her.
Right.
She chooses just to wander off into the darkness.
Well, she says something like, you know, oh, the dog's barking again. So clearly this has happened before.
Okay.
Also, bad writing.
Thank you. The bad writing is...
I mean, maybe even bad writing is not, you know, it's not bad necessarily, but it's thin.
Yeah, it's too thin.
Like, it's just the writing is, again, it's the whole thing of like, oh, you know, Storm is going to struggle against Dreadlock guy because she has to right now. It's like, no, Storm should take that guy out in 5 seconds.
Well,
Like the Toad guy, you know, the person gets sucked with lightning, then that's
Yeah.
it, he's gone.
Yeah, like Toad guy.
You know?
the writing...
Who's called the Toad, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
The writing
Why try with that kind
is
of a
as
character?
thin as a second season of a podcast
Oh,
that
for
tried
God's
to pad
sake.
with Dungeons and
Will
Dragons.
you let it go? Let it go.
I thought you'd see that one coming
I
sooner.
did see that one coming.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
Yeah.
let
sure
you
you
have
did.
it. I just
I'm
let
sure
you
you
have
did.
it.
You're like Krogar walking around a corner. You
Oh,
don't see
now
what's
we're going to
coming.
reference the show.
I was just saying, dude, you've got to stop. Like, no one's going to understand this episode without listening to the D&D episode.
Oh, so we'll just cut that.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, okay.
I'm gonna wait- I'm
So
gonna spend
Dabari
time
are your
going-
first problem.
Well, yeah, and we've already talked about another problem, which was Nightcrawler,
Yeah.
like, or the heroes in general. Do you have other complaints? I thought the villains were the weakest part of this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, I've got some other complaints.
Yeah, I mean, the Dabari just are. I give them credit. I was like, oh, they brought the Dabari in. I'm like, okay, so that was, you know, they're trying to use some of the material. As
Right.
opposed to Last Stand, that, like, there's, except for her being Phoenix, there's, like, nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
They missed the good material, and they shoehorned in material that didn't matter.
Yeah,
as
well,
much.
just shoehorned in material enough to remind you that, oh, yeah, there's a much better story.
Yeah.
In the I mean, that's the problem. It's not. They're sort of a double-edged sword. I'm like, yeah, you are doing things to reference the original comic more, but in a way that's just going to remind people that know the comics of, oh yeah, that's not what they were.
So
Yeah.
you make Captain America: Civil War. It's based on comics, right? There's a comic book story there.
Yeah.
It's not 100%.
Oh God, it's barely
Authentic,
anything related
right?
to the comic except the
And-
title,
and
that
yet-
and that Cap and Iron Man fight each
Right.
other.
It works,
Mm-hmm.
right? It worked, and so you can do it. They just didn't.
Well, and again, I think that's part of the problem is that
But
it was
also-
clear in the original X-Men trilogy. Because if you go back and watch the first X-Men movie,
Yeah.
when the whatever Magneto's doing on the Statue of Liberty,
Uh-huh.
there's a shot of when that power goes off and it hits Jean. There's a shot of it affecting her.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously in X2, you have kind of her sacrifice. And X3 should have been a very different Dark Phoenix saga. Like, it was clear that in the original X-Men trilogy, they were clearly building towards
Right.
the Dark Phoenix saga. Now, the problem is that Singer went away after X-Men 2,
Yeah.
and you brought in Ratner, of all people,
Yeah.
who did his own... I think we would have maybe gotten a much more faithful Dark Phoenix saga in
The Last Stand.
what would have been The Last Stand if Singer had stayed on.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, they were taking the time to develop it, which is what you need for something like Dark Phoenix.
Right.
This is, oh, we're going to do it in a movie.
Right.
Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and then like,
I was
wanna-
cautiously optimistic. Like, at the beginning, I'm like, when they're rescuing the astronauts, I'm like, oh, this is kind of faithful to the
Yeah.
comics. Like, okay, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
And then 10 seconds
then,
later.
and then things went off the rails basically after that.
Although the movie to me, it ran really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it's a short
you-
movie.
You didn't feel like you were sitting
I'm
there
not even
for a
sure
long
it's two.
time.
I think it's like less than
It's-
2
it-
hours
yeah.
in terms of runtime.
Which is, for superheroes nowadays,
for now, well, particularly for something that should be this epic.
is pretty short. Yeah, so no, that part, yeah, I like that part.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, like, the massive continuity problem with the issue of that Jean displayed the Phoenix Force at the end of Apocalypse. And yet she gets it in this movie.
Yeah.
Stop asking questions.
Which is...
Bad writing.
better. Or just, again, thin writing. In fact, I think what we saw in Apocalypse was like the peak of Jean's own powers.
Right.
And then this other thing inhabits her in this movie. But again, nothing that they actually took or had the time to establish.
Right. Yeah. So there was one point on which I think the movie deserves credit for trying, but not executing. Mm-hmm. And that's it's clearly trying to talk about sort of the empowerment of women.
Yeah.
It clearly is, right? Like it's meant to kind of present Professor Xavier,
Yeah.
in I think an authentically comic booky kind of way.
That he stinks.
Kind of an a-hole.
Yeah, that Professor X is always terrible.
He always knows better. He
Yeah.
tells Jean how to be. He doesn't even
And
tell
again,
her how to be. Like
no, he just makes her that
he just
way.
makes her
Which
that
again
way.
is carried over from Last Stand and is a version of
Right.
the comics in the sense that
Yeah.
when what finally defeats Dark Phoenix is that he puts those psychic circuit breakers in her.
right.
I mean, the difference is that he does that to her when she is Dark Phoenix.
Right.
In the film, it's something he does when she's a kid. In both
Right.
films.
Right. But both films are they like. Vuk at the end says like you're too emotional and that's why I'll beat you, but
Yeah.
it turns out like Jean's
My
emotions
emotions are-
make her
yeah.
human, and
Yeah.
and it's why she wins. It's clearly a film in the vein of a Captain Marvel
Yeah.
that's trying to say something about gender relations today.
Somewhat, yeah.
Well, I don't think somewhat. I think they're my complaint about the movie is it comes off as too preachy.
Oh, see, my complaint about the movie is that I feel like that element gets eclipsed by the conflict between Beast, Xavier, and Magneto.
Well,
Like
okay,
but when
when
the gender standpoint, yeah, I agree that they.
But
you
when
could do
Jean's
that.
on the screen, my complaint with that is, you see them doing it. It's like when there's this book coming out from the University of Texas Press,
I've heard of this book.
All New, All Different. It's a history of race and the American superhero, written by us. By the way, listeners who are interested in a discount should go ahead and message one of us because we can hook them up with a
Yeah,
little
that or
with a little 20% off.
I've got an idea. I've got an idea for something.
But 100th episode? Yeah. So, in the book, one of the things we write about is the way in which pop culture can or cannot move people.
Yeah.
And we theorize, very lightly, that the preaching is less effective
Yes.
than an effectively told story.
Yeah.
And my complaint about the gender politics that they've brought into Dark Phoenix isn't that they're bad politics. I think
Right.
I think what they're aiming for is really praiseworthy.
Yeah.
But you see them doing it. To me, like, it becomes like sermonizing as opposed to storytelling.
Yeah. See, for me, it didn't strike me as preachy.
It did.
But it did strike me as bad storytelling in the sense that
it's too obvious. Like, it's obvious that it's about the political statement they want to make, and like the art doesn't cover it. It's just to me a political statement.
See, for me, it felt more that they tried to make sort of a more political statement, but then, as every one of these films always does, it ends up being about Xavier and Magneto.
Yeah. Well, that's what made the film good at the start. Is it felt like it was a film about Jean,
And again, because it's definitely the second half of the film that
and that's what it needed to be. Like, it needed to be a story about Jean,
Mm-hmm.
and the film was trying to make the point that Xavier is imposing his story on
Yes.
Jean, but the film imposes Xavier's story on Jean.
Yes. Well, and the other
Right? Like, which
yeah.
is like the
Like,
sort
well,
of the
but
Is
the
it
other
bad if
the
you
other problem
mention
too
it's
is
bad?
that
the paradox of the film.
But I think also, and again,
this is
this go-
bad, and we're going to do it.
But this,
Yeah.
but again, I think
But
the
you
other
know it's
issue
bad.
too.
Right? We know
We're
it's
still gonna
bad.
do it.
We preach it's bad. So
Well, but here's the problem.
what I say, not what I do, folks.
Yeah.
The main person who's the voice of this is bad
Yeah.
is Mystique, and they kill her off halfway through the film,
Oh, by the way, huge mistake
revealing that.
in the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, you knew it was
Oh,
when you
man,
saw
yeah.
it originally. Like, you're like, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, trailer 1. First time I saw it.
But
she's
to
dead.
me, like, there's a scene that might have some emotional
It had
resonance
no emotional resonance because
because
we all
you
knew it was
know
coming.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, it made no sense to me. Like, their choice to do that.
Oh yeah, their choice.
Maybe
to
you showed the grave site
Yeah.
in the trailer, but you don't connect it.
Well, it's not
to
even that.
Mystique,
That when
you know?
they raised the trailer, or when they showed the trailer, and there was the gravesite, and you saw Jean like shoving Mystique away.
Yeah.
Like people said, they're like, "Oh, are you killing off Mystique in this film?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
'cause
the
it-
producer said, "Yeah, we're killing her off." I'm like, "Why would you say that?"
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. But it's like just to image. Like that's what
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 2. It's like
Yeah.
you see a shovel away.
I mean, you think
It's
about
just
that.
Gravesite.
You think
It's a
about that moment
terrible
that we
idea.
knew was coming
Yeah.
versus what we all knew it was coming in Endgame, which is the return of everybody.
Yeah.
And the return of everybody still works, even though we knew it was coming.
When everybody returns in the theater, people gasp.
Oh, yeah.
He was like,
Well, be forget.
you know?
But like you knew that was everyone knew that was
But
coming.
was
even
just-
Infinity War, you know, you knew at the end, like if you've read the comics, you know, like some people have to get dusted, but still, it's effective because they don't show it happening.
Right. It just, to me, huge mistake.
Yeah, I don't
Because
under.
it makes.
Well, it's one of the ways that they, in a lot of ways, the roll up to Dark Phoenix sort of undermined and kind of made it underwhelming.
yeah.
Like you have one of what could be the most emotionally resonant
Yeah.
scenes, and you completely deflated it.
Yeah. To me, you should feel it when Mystique dies.
Yeah.
And I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Because, again, you knew it was coming. And by the way, they should just every once in a while have a superhero funeral where it's not raining.
Yeah,
Because
or,
funerals
like,
do happen occasionally.
Yeah.
You
in
know,
dry
nice
weather.
and
No.
sunny and happy, and there's
Right,
a large
like-
crowd too.
Was
not
that
just
Sunny
5
in the funeral
people.
at Last Stand?
I can't remember.
I don't recall there being rain.
Oh, Bobby and I just watched Watchmen,
But you know what? It's probably
which has like the classic
Yeah.
Zack Snyder
Oh.
rainy funeral.
with Sound of Silence. It's like wow,
Doctor-
that
Now,
song is a bit on the nose.
Could you make it black and white and make it, you know?
Oh,
Oh,
wait,
it was
Zack
black
Snyder
and white.
on the nose?
Yeah,
Music?
bit on the nose with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, be nice to have a funeral where there's like more than like 12 people.
Right. All of the kids at the Xavier Institute know Mystique.
Yeah, they would have had
They're
classes
all
with her.
barred from the funeral. Like only 5 people can
Yeah.
attend the funeral
Yeah.
because Rich is right. It has to be a really small crowd.
But like, yeah,
It
it's
has
like,
to be.
No,
It has
listen.
to be very rainy.
No, listen.
Yeah.
The kids all got to attend the funeral, and then they had to leave for the big emotional moment with like the 5 people.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
yet somehow they
skip-
manage to dry up real quickly while everybody else comes back. So
Well, I'm sure Storm like blew them off with wind. Plus, it's stormy because Storm is sad.
Storm blew them
See,
off.
but like, wouldn't that even be nice if it was like Storm was sad and that's why it was raining?
Yes,
like,
it
and
would,
that's
but
what went
again,
into it.
thin writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and also like beyond Jean and Beast and Xavier and Magneto,
Yeah.
nobody else has a storyline.
Right.
Like, there's nobody else that has.
And
any
I'll be
storyline.
honest, I'm sick of Magneto. I'm so over.
I'm
like,
not sick of it,
Although,
but
like-
they put such a nice pin in it at the end of Age of Apocalypse. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we don't need another movie
even
that's about the relationship between Xavier and Magneto. We get it.
I
But
totally.
even before that, like it's just like he did his thing. He was stopped from killing the president, whatever. Like it's over. Just let him like fade off into the background and do someone else.
Well, the problem is Michael Fassbender is really good.
He's really
Oh,
great.
I
will-
love him. Yeah.
I will watch Michael Fassbender in anything. And in X-Men First Class, that's the best Magneto.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Like,
you
it's-
mean Eric Lyncher, Nazi Hunter?
Yeah.
Like, just do that as a movie.
That is
Plus,
that's,
also Fassbender should be James Bond.
right. And there's,
Yeah.
He
yeah.
would be a fantastic James
Or
Bond.
some
There's
version of a
been-
James Bond.
Like
yeah.
Magneto was good in the first X-Men trilogy too.
Oh yeah, Ian McKellen. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I do like all the people that are. I'm sure you've seen the meme that's like Fassbender in this movie, which is 1992, and then Ian McKellen as Magneto in the first X-Men, which is 2000. They're like, it's a rough 8 years.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
I've seen complaints about the leads, that they're just kind of going through the motions.
You hear that, well, with the ones that have been in the films for a while.
I did not feel... Like, I felt like I always liked Fassbender.
Yeah.
Like, I thought McAvoy was good.
McAvoy, yeah. Fassbender and McAvoy have always
Nicholas
been
Hoult
good.
is really good. Like, he's...
Hulk, I like that. I like Hulk as Beast, and he had at least some decent stuff to do.
I think he can act. Like,
he can.
The problem, I don't think, was with the actor's investment.
No.
It was with that thin writing that
I
you're talking
think they
about.
don't
Like,
have a lot to invest in.
There's only so much you can do with that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that's the other thing, too. I'm like, when Jean just shows up at Magneto's, island that's obviously supposed to be Genosha, even though they never call it that in the film.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing in the film that establishes
Wait, was that an island?
Yeah, remember, there's the shot of an island, and then Jean
No,
is...
I must have...
But that's the first time we have where Magneto is established in this film. I'm like, did you want to mention, what Magneto's doing at some point? Because Jean just showed up on an island. I have no idea what this is.
There's a really interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
Right? Is like what Magneto's done. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just...
It's just too thin of a story.
Yeah.
Which, again, is the same issue with Last Stand.
Yeah.
Is they're trying to do too much and too little, and so it just gets all watered down and thin.
Right. The person I always get wrong is Cyclops. It's like you can't do a Cyclops who's not just like a...
Well, yeah.
Like
well,
a
because
very cardboardy character.
They gave all of Cyclops in the original films to Wolverine.
Yeah.
And now they don't have Wolverine.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, Ty Sheridan does about as much as he can.
Yeah, but Cyclops always looks a certain way. He always comes off as like so Boy Scouty that.
Well, that's because he was the kind of like the quintessential superhero Boy Scout.
So I thought Sophie Turner was also. Now I've not watched Games of Thrones.
Yes. Well, no, you've watched season 1, right?
That's true. But I thought she was really good in this movie.
Yeah,
like
I mean, again, well, you just
she's
look at...
She's also a very talented actor.
Well, you look at some of the actors, like we mentioned, Jessica Chastain, Fassbender, McAvoy, Turner, Holt.
There's star power.
There's quality
talent.
actors there that are doing about as much as you can with what ends up feeling like a fairly thin script. Like there's not enough meat to it.
Yeah.
I mean, probably Turner has the most meat.
Agreed. And I think she does pretty well with it.
And probably next to her, probably Holt has the most to do.
Yeah.
But that's the problem too, is they have to do all this, the whole idea that he and Mystique were thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
There's just too much that this movie has to establish in itself.
Right.
For it all to be in one movie. Or to be in one, slightly less than 2 hours.
Number one, the relationship between the Beast and Mystique is not, fully enough developed.
No.
That she was thinking about leaving. They literally had...
one conversation about that.
No, they had, a 30-second conversation about it. So it's like...
Sheila goes, I'm thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
And what's over here...
And he's like, I think we should stay. And then they cut to something else. It's the thinness of the writing.
Well, that's right.
Like, you can point to it and you can say established.
Yes.
But not
really.
Really established.
And that's the problem. The film has too much to do to get to where it wants to be.
Right.
For a lot of the stuff to have the depth and feeling that it should.
They made 4 X-Men films in this series.
You mean since First Class?
Right. Could have spent some time doing this.
Yeah. Or even just,
instead,
could have spent some time doing it in Apocalypse even.
But instead you can see what they okay, we're going to do First Class to establish the team.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to hit all of the classics.
Yeah.
We're going to shoehorn in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, but they did a good job with Days of Future Past.
Yeah. Again, the problem's not the individual film.
Right.
It's that you can't do Days of Future Past and Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix and an establishing film and let that last film be satisfying in any way because you're just you
can't do it because you're running through too many things. You could probably Days of Future Past in the way they did, but then you don't do Apocalypse. You should have done something leading up to Phoenix.
Right, and use Days of Future Past to set up Phoenix but instead they were like, here are the X-Men classics, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
We're going to hit the classics, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And all of them might have benefited from a little bit of, more time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think in particular, the last two would have benefited from more time.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Days of Future Past is a relatively short, self-contained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, the movie was
it
a
basically
little
had the
too
job
ambitious.
of wiping out Wolverine Origins and X-Men Last Stand from continuity,
Yeah.
which
The
it did
best-
very well.
But it's
The best
also
kind of
based
retcon.
on. It's also based on comic book canon that's relatively self-contained too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously, the ramifications of Days of Future Past probably not good for the X-Men in the long run, because it kind of establishes this time traveling trope that is so
Well, but
overdone in X-Men right now.
There you're echoing John Byrne, who of course
Don't accuse me of echoing John.
you totally
Byrne.
echo John, because what John Byrne said is that when he drew Days of Futures Past,
Yeah.
that the original script was that there was going to be that world was going to be wiped out and there would be no way for it to continue.
Yeah.
And then when Claremont did the scripting and the issue was published, there was a change at the end that allowed it to continue, and Byrne was like, "That's not what it was supposed to be."
Yeah.
Because he leaves right after that.
The truth of the matter is, I can live with either one.
Yeah.
But the way they open that door has become.
That Pandora's box.
Yeah,
so
and I-
now we do time travel whenever we want.
Do you think Jonathan Hickman's going to fix that in the comics?
I don't know.
He's such a cosmic, grand scale guy. That's
He
how I
is.
think of him.
Well, yeah.
It worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you
I'm at
saying
least-
time travel is not troubling in comic books?
What you know my position on time travel in all things.
Yeah, you hate time travel.
That's the worst.
I love time travel. Just trying to see.
He acts like he's done it, you know. Wait, you were gonna travel back in time. What was Rich gonna do? Wait, I can't remember. He had.
I was going to prevent the housing crisis or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's going to prevent the... No.
No, the
The stock crisis.
He was going to go back to the... Yeah, he's gonna stop, I think he was going to go back to the Great Depression
Yeah.
and warn them about the housing crisis in the early 2000s.
look out in 70 years.
Your grandkids
That's right.
are going to
He's
be...
going to show up in October 1929,
Yeah,
warning them about, October 2009.
yeah. That's one of the best moments.
Look, you can't put me on the spot with, this kind of question.
The best part is he's not even gonna even if he was going back to warn people about the Great Depression, he wasn't telling them how to avoid it.
No.
He's just gonna be like, "Here it comes, people."
Yeah, but he wasn't even planning to warn them about the Great
Yeah.
Depression.
Grit your teeth. Grit your grandkids' teeth.
Start working on your Hoover.
70 years from now, the housing bubble's going to burst. Ooh, and tomorrow's a bad day, too.
Tomorrow's going to be great.
If you got
But it's
any
gonna
money
get
in
way
the stock
worse.
market, you might
You might want to,
you might think about putting it under your bed.
So,
Stop making those shanty towns.
but yeah.
Now that I said put it under your bed, now I can't get the Twitch image of Rich's bed out of my head.
Well, it's already been deleted.
Oh, I should have taken a screenshot of that. Would have been useful for future advertising.
So should we talk a little bit about the X-Men franchise as a whole, now that it's coming to an end?
Yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time, but it feels like we should.
Yeah.
It feels like we've been moving that way for a
Yeah.
while now. Rich?
So,
Checking time.
I was wondering if you're going to tell us or just keep it to
yeah, no, I barely
yourself.
could check time. And, oh, he's doing
Well, no,
math.
because we did
8 minutes
Like-
of intro?
Oh, for God's
more
sake.
like 10, so it's at 42 then.
That'd be
So you still
32.
get 18 minutes.
18 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boom.
I've got reviews pulled up, too, if we need to fill
Yeah.
a fair
Well, are we looking forward to Marvel's version of X-Men?
Well, I don't know what Marvel's version of X-Men is going to be.
But
So.
can it be worse?
I would assume it's going to be better.
It's hard to say.
Like, track record-wise,
I have
it's
concerns
hard.
about the MCU going forward. I'm a little concerned that Endgame may have broken it.
How?
Because the timeline makes no sense.
What do you mean?
But that's a separate podcast, probably.
Well, yeah.
Um,
You know why? Time travel.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
going to ruin the MCU?
I'm a little bit concerned that I just don't know where the MCU...
They're going to have to do something to establish what it is.
What it is now, yeah. Because I'm like, I have no idea what it is going forward.
And
It's
it also
clearly
has to
not
be
what it was.
carried by characters who aren't considered
Yeah, I mean, that's
A-list.
yeah.
Look, God knows I'll go see another Ant-Man film. So,
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, though, they're not maybe going to do an Ant-Man film.
well, my point being,
Yeah.
name your I'll probably go see the Eternals.
I'll be curious if they can pull off Eternals. That feels like just shy of Inhumans, and they didn't do well with that.
Yeah, but it feels to me like Guardians of the Galaxy,
It's going to be one or the other.
which I heard when I heard they were doing Guardians, I thought that's
Yeah,
a really
well, it's-
stupid
it's-
choice.
it's gonna be
That's
one
a
or the
dumb
other.
choice. And
Yeah. I really wonder if like Eternals is we're actually doing X-Men, but we're calling it Eternals so nobody knows.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Because I'm like, why would you pick the Eternals?
That feels like X-Men coming really soon, though.
It does.
Could it be Fantastic Four? It feels
Oh
like
man, I hope not.
Well, Fantastic Four is riper for a film.
Oh yeah,
Right?
Well, and that's
Hey,
what
really, can you do us?
apparently Peyton Reed, the guy that does the Ant-Man films, he wants to do the Fantastic Four.
Well, and I heard that Jessica Alba might reprise her role as the Invisible Woman.
Seriously?
No.
I was just saying, I did not hear that.
Hey, wait, Chris Evans might be in it.
I just wanted to get Jessica Alba
No, they, should
into
get
the...
they should have Chris Evans play the Human Torch again, just
Yeah.
to blow everyone's mind.
Yeah, it's like
Oh, this makes no sense.
like even he's confused during the filming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's still
So
Captain
anyway,
America. Just
Yes,
as Human
back to
Torch.
the X-Men
The
franchise.
X-Men
at Fox.
franchise. You
Yeah.
mean the film franchise? Do
Yes,
you mean the
at
pop
Fox.
culture franchise?
I was thinking the film franchise.
So what's your final assessment?
I still say that X-Men 2 is in my top 10, if not my top 5 of superhero movies. I think that
Two is really good.
2 is really good. 2 is definitely the high point of the franchise.
Which
for me.
one is 2?
I
It's
have
the second one. X2,
it's called
X-Men United.
X2.
Thank you.
It was the one that really ran with sexuality is an issue.
Yes, yeah, it was the one where you really saw that where the X-Men as a metaphor for sexuality brought out.
Yeah. To me, I think like you're speaking for most people when you rank X2 that highly.
Yeah, for me,
Like, I
X2
think
is the best.
It's generally seen
Mm-hmm.
as the best. The only one that I might put in front of it.
Can I guess? It's First
No,
Class.
It's First Class. That movie has always had like a soft. I've always had a soft spot in my heart
Yeah, no, First Class is
for that
definitely
film.
up there.
I just think it's like a. And when Beast and Mystique in this film are talking about being the only two originals,
Yeah, I was like, oh god,
Left.
it's been rough.
which to me felt really authentic in a way too.
Yes.
Like that's probably what would happen if Xavier,
Yeah.
given who he is especially, put together a team.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that was probably a bit too obviously done in
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix was the whole. It's just going to take one day of us going bad to undo everything we've built.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Yeah.
One day of one of us going bad undoes everything they built. I'm like,
speak,
wow.
Can I speak to the president,
You
please?
guys-
Oh, we're
Oh, this-
disconnecting this line.
You mean the X phone?
Oh, God. Yeah.
The only thing better would have been if they had gotten the bust from the original Batman series and actually just had that.
Tipped it.
Oh,
back, yeah.
like
Because yeah, I'm like, seriously, he's
Oh,
got
and then get Commissioner Gordon, like a guy doing Commissioner Gordon's
Exactly.
voice on the other end,
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
or Chief O'Hara. What was his catchphrase? Bagora.
Yeah,
Did he-
Faith in Bagora. wasn't
Faith
it?
in
It's-
Oh man.
I'm not sure he had one. I think they were all very stereotypically Irish.
But just like Robin, you
Faith
know.
in
It's,
Bagora. You can't call this line
Yeah.
anymore, laddie.
Yeah,
well,
that
Faith
was-
in
but
Bagora,
yeah.
you can't be calling this line.
But yeah, I mean, well, and I go back to, I think part of, I mean, I give credit, I mean, because X-Men was kind of the first superhero franchise of the 2000s.
Yeah.
And in part, like I talked about that sort of realistic aesthetic that it has. A lot of that was kind of born out of the fact that they were doing this before
Yeah.
any of the technology was around for
Right.
it. I mean, the first X-Men film is good.
Yeah.
My complaint about it is that you kind of see ways in which it's kind of hampered by the small budget it had.
Yeah, but it's also the first, and I think it gets a boost in a way because it is the first and it establishes something.
Yeah.
And then I think Last Stand is my least favorite.
It's tough for me. Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, are we counting that one?
Oh yeah, we're counting that one.
Yeah.
Those are-
the
those are
Wolverine film.
The
is
bottom.
bad. Is that the one where they put the parasite in him?
Parasite in it. No, that's the Wolverine.
No, that's the Wolf. Okay.
That's
I-
the one that like the first 2/3 is a really good noir film, and then when Robot Silver Samurai shows up, it's like, wow, this got stupid. Brought to you by the same man that eventually did Logan.
Right. So for me,
Which, by the way, Logan probably should be up towards the top 2.
You think Logan should be an X-Men movie?
I guess I was thinking about the 7 films.
Yeah,
So if you include Logan, although it's hard because
Logan's so different.
it's just not the
Oh.
same kind of film. But
Yeah.
Logan is probably the best of those films.
Yeah, it's
a
very different way from
It's
X2.
a-
I just like
a-
as a good superhero popcorn movie.
If you want to talk about superhero movies,
yeah,
I think it's First Class and then X2.
Yeah.
But I hear the argument for X2, which I think is a really good film.
yeah, it's just so particularly given
But-
that it's the first attempt at doing something with that large a cast, and they pull it off.
If you want to talk about the best film, just pure film,
Logan.
it's Logan,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, you know, you can
Either Logan or The Last Stand. Or Dark Phoenix.
No.
Or Apocalypse.
I mean, I would still put Dark Phoenix above Last Stand.
Really?
Oh, I
Above
would.
X-Men Origin Wolverine. X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I would put it about on par with Apocalypse.
It's that. That's where I put it. It's basically
Yeah.
on par, like.
Which is like.
And I
maybe-
liked Apocalypse.
which
Which
is
people
a-
savaged Apocalypse as well. It's
No,
like,
I
perfectly
like
fine.
Apocalypse. Right. And then a half step ahead of that would be, for me, Days of Future Past.
I'd probably put a little more than a half step.
And then you got the top. Like, to me, the top would be... So it's First Class, it's X2.
And then if we include Logan, Logan's in there somewhere.
Right, Logan will be the top for me. And then you get to the films I would start lumping together, like the first X-Men film,
Yeah.
with maybe the second in the
Yeah, first
in the
X-Men
new
film's kind of
series.
in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, first X-Men film and Days of Future. I'd probably put Days of Future Past maybe just a smidge above first X-Men.
I would, too.
But they're pretty much on par.
Yeah. So we're pretty much in agreement. Where
yeah.
we disagree would be, like, maybe number one.
Yeah, I think we have the same. We basically have them all in pairs. We just disagree which of the pairs goes
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the X-Men. I mean, the X-Men franchise is getting. The last two movies have not been spectacular.
Right. It's time for it to move somewhere else.
Yeah,
It's
well, and
probably time
particularly
for it to
when
rest
you
for
see
a
it,
while.
when you see what the MCU has achieved at the same time,
Yeah.
like the X-Men franchise just looks so much smaller.
Pedestrian.
Yeah.
But still, overall, especially if you don't count the original the Nolan trilogy,
Yeah.
better than what DC has cranked out. Slightly better.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, but yeah, it
DC
probably
cranked
is.
out Man of Steel,
Yeah.
Suicide Squad,
Oh God.
Superman vs.
Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You can just say Martha and like
I think
lose.
you can argue X Men were a fairly
You forgot
average,
Wonder Woman
a fairly well,
and Aquaman.
so Wonder Woman raised the average, and Aquaman tanked it. No pun intended.
No.
No, tanked it. No,
Aquaman.
Anybody?
Aquaman's yeah. No.
Tanked it.
Yeah. Stop fishing for compliments.
Yeah,
Let's see.
you're lost at sea with this one.
Oh God.
Oh,
yeah.
oh.
One
That
too
was-
many. That was.
Yeah.
See, ours were subtle.
Yep.
That
Hey,
was
it's
just
hope.
painfully obvious.
Not gonna be picked up.
Yeah,
by
I
the
feel like
mic, I'm afraid.
X-Men probably deserves more credit than it gets right now, just because the last few films have not been great,
It's been average.
and people tend to forget that Logan is part of the franchise.
If you count Logan,
Because it's so different.
right?
You know, it's so hard to think of it as part of the franchise.
Yeah.
But like you go back and you watch those first two X-Men films, like particularly X2, like you're talking about, films that really showed that you could do superheroes like they are in the comics.
Especially
on
when
screen.
they came out.
Yeah.
And then X2 you can do kind of big epic storytelling
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one that as a whole, it's got very strong films and it's got very weak films.
Right. So overall, like kind of an averagey.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ends up
franchise.
being
Worth watching
and feels
with-
more middling than it probably
Right.
deserves, just
Somehow.
because, like, the last few films have not
Wowed anybody.
wowed anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas DC gave us Aquaman.
Which wowed everyone apparently.
On its own is enough to put DC at the bottom of that list.
Oh come on, Aquaman's not that bad.
To me, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
No.
It is.
Aquaglow? Yeah.
Hot garbage.
No, it's not that bad.
It-
It is the
it-
Transformers of the DC films.
No.
Yes.
Sir.
100%.
I
It
will
is-
side
we
with
will-
Alan on this
We
one.
will kill this podcast
It is.
before number 100 if you stick to that position.
I'm telling you, Transformers is like, Aquaman is basically a Michael Bay film. If Michael Bay did not film it.
Absolutely not. There are not enough explosions.
There's a lot of explosions. There's
But
just
not
one.
enough.
There's plenty.
Not enough for Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Sir, I think I am done.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts? It feels like we're probably pressing time.
Well,
at this
I
point.
hope that once they are in the warm embrace of the MCU, that the X-Men franchise will rise again to the heights it once had, almost Phoenix-like.
It won't.
Really? Like that's it?
I made a nice circle there. That's how we started. That's how we ended it. It's
Yeah.
a nice circle.
Yeah, but see, the way you're drawing the circle,
Uh-huh.
you're starting at the top of the circle and you're meeting at the bottom of the circle.
Yes.
Whereas when you're doing a circle, no, you start at the top and you return all the way to the top.
No. Mine's it's a
No,
double
because
circle.
then you've
Also,
only done a
yours is more like an
semicircle.
oval.
No, it's two sides at the same time. Circle.
That doesn't make any sense.
Circle.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
I am making it. If you follow both of my fingers,
Yeah.
you made a circle.
Honestly, it's more oval.
But your finger, the point about the phoenix rising from the ashes, start at the top.
And ends at the bottom.
It's supposed to start at the top and end at the top. No, if you start at the bottom,
No,
and get to the
because
top, that doesn't change the dynamic if you start at the top or the bottom.
The X-Men franchise
You're still
is down
making
here.
the same mistake.
The X-Men franchise is down here. It's going to rise above like
Hope,
a
will you
phoenix.
show him again? Watch.
Yeah, no, I understand
It's
what
a
you're
circle.
Yeah, because you know, as it returns to the so it starts good
saying. It's rising.
and returns good.
Rising. See, going from here to up.
It's going from here to up. Good God.